Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Robinson again, and we are going to continue our studies. This time we are talking about trigonometric ratios. We're going to find the angle of SOHCAHTOA shooting at the line. So you remember the story that my teacher told us. He said that SOHCAHTOA was at the bottom of the mountain and he saw a lion chasing something, and he found out that it was his horse. And he immediately, wanting to protect his horse, pulled out a bow and arrow and took a shot that was very, very remarkable. And that shot hit the lion right square in the heart and killed it instantaneously before he could jump up to kill SOHCAHTOA's horse. So we're going to find out what angle was it that SOHCAHTOA used to find out to kill the lion. So let's talk about angles. So here are the steps to find an angle using a calculator. Step 1, set the calculator's mode to degrees. So that's important. Make sure it's in degrees. Step 2, press second. Step 3, press the trigonometric ratio you're using. Step 4, type your fraction or the decimal. Step 5, close the parentheses. Step 6, press enter. And the final step, sometimes you have to round off your answer if it's necessary. So those are the 7 steps that you need to do in order to find the angle using your calculator. So here, we're going to find the missing angle of the right triangle. Round off the answer to the nearest whole number. So here we got SOHCAHTOA sitting there at the bottom of the mountain next to the letter X. So we want to find X degrees. What is the angle that he's shooting to kill the lion? So we have help. We have 8 and we have 10. So we have to find out by spelling SOHCAHTOA which part of his name is he going to use. Is he going to use sine, cosine, or tangent? So we have to determine what are these other letters that he's using here. So let's see the relationship. We have the most dangerous side of the mountain, the 10, and remember, it is located right across from the right angle. So that's our hypotenuse. And we have the 8, which is located right next to him. That's adjacent. So since I have a hypotenuse, I'm going to check off. I have a hypotenuse, check, check. And I also have an adjacent, check. And I noticed tangent did not have a hypotenuse, so I'm going to cross that out automatically and not use tangent. So I know it's going to be either sine or cosine. So since I'm using adjacent and hypotenuse, it's got to be cosine. So I'm going to have cosine of adjacent over hypotenuse. So cosine of x, which is the degree measure, is going to be equal to 8 over 10. So now is where I need my calculator to find out how much is the angle going to be. So let's get our calculator out and get that angle. So remember the steps. First step is press second. Second step, press your trigonometric ratio, and we're using cosine. Now my teacher told me you could see SOHCAHTOA standing there and his bow and arrow. There's his bow is bent, ready to shoot, and there's his little arrow, straight forward, ready to shoot, and SOHCAHTOA standing there. And so that's let you know what angle SOHCAHTOA is getting ready to shoot at. So that way you can know you're looking for the angle of what you're shooting. So keep that in mind. That's a good way to know about SOHCAHTOA and shooting at an angle. So now we type in our 8/10. So we can type 8 ABC button 10 or 8 divide by 10 because that divide symbol also is a way of saying fraction bar. And we press enter and we get all of this 36.86989765. So that would be our answer, but it said round off to the nearest whole number. So we go to the number next to the decimal point, and we want to round that off. If it's 5 or above, we would shove up the 6 by 1. If it's 4 or below, we would let everything go. So it is above 5, so that's going to give me 37. So my answer is going to be 37 degrees. So again, let's go over what we did. First thing we did was we had to determine which part of SOHCAHTOA's name we're going to use for the ratio. Is it sine, cosine, or tangent? How do we determine that? We have to see what do we have as far as the sides. We have an 8 and we had a 10. So next to SOHCAHTOA was the adjacent side. The hypotenuse was there also. So that's why I checked off the adjacent and hypotenuse. I had only a hypotenuse here, but I didn't have the opposite side, which was over here, so I could not use sine. And I didn't have opposite and adjacent, even though I had adjacent, but I didn't have the opposite side, so I could not figure out using tangent. So I had adjacent and hypotenuse, which gave me a ratio which I could use. So that's why I use cosine. So make sure you have two out of the three parts of SOHCAHTOA's name in order to use. So if you have two things, then you're in business. You can use it. Okay? All right. So a long time ago when I was going to school, we used to use, before calculators, or some of the kids had calculators, we would use these sheets which had the angle measurements. So thank you, Mr. Barrows, for giving us sheets. Here's a little lesson on finding the angle measurement. So let's look at the first one. Let's clear our calculator. We want to find the angle. So sine of the angle, sine of A, equals this. So let's press second sine so we can see SOHCAHTOA standing there. And we want to find out what would be the angle measurement for 0.1908. And let's close parenthesis. And we would get 10.99, 94, 74, 96, and we round that off to the nearest whole number, so we would get pretty much 11. 11 degrees. So this is a little exercise that we'll do in class to figure out what's the angle when we're given all these measurements. So good practice on using your calculator. So here's one for you. Find the missing angle of the right triangle. Round off to the nearest whole number. So sometimes the triangles are looking funny and turned upside down, so you might have to turn them and rotate a little bit to get them to look a little bit better for you. So here's SOHCAHTOA up there, and see what you got. And there's a 12 on the way there, and next to him is a 24, and here's pointing this way. That's across from the right angle. I notice there's no hypotenuse, so I notice right away that I'm going to use tangent because there is no hypotenuse. So I need two things. I have O and an A. So if SOHCAHTOA is standing there, all the way down here would be my O. Right next to him would be the A. So I would use tan, which would be 12 over 24. So 12 over 24. So now I got to get my calculator one more time. So let's get the calculator. Let's clear this. Let me select that off. All right. My calculator again. All right, clear this. And let me delete that. Okay. All right, here we go. So second, 10 and 12. I can use my ABC button or my division button, and 24, close parenthesis, and I get 26, 56, 50, 51, 18. Okay, so round that off to the nearest whole number they want us to, so it's 5, so I would make that 27, so it would be 27 degrees. So X would be 27 degrees, which would be SOHCAHTOA shooting to kill the lion. So again, make sure you have two parts to check off on your SOHCAHTOA list. So there was no hypotenuse. So since there is no hypotenuse, I can't use cosine or tangent because there's no hypotenuse over here. Here's my hypotenuse. There is no number. Even though if I had time I could use the Pythagorean theorem, I could find the hypotenuse, but won't do that right now. I have an opposite side and I have adjacent side. And that's all I need, two sides to help me find my missing angle. So I hope you got something out of this. Here is one example for you to try. Find the missing angle of the right triangle, round off to the nearest whole number again, and we notice we have it turned upside down, so try to figure out which is which. There's our spelling of SOHCAHTOA, so give it a shot. I think you'll get it. If you need to watch the videotape again, do so. Write out your questions. If you have any, I'll be glad to answer them in the morning. So this is Dr. Robinson signing off. I hope you got something out of this little video. Bye-bye.